Yo, welcome back to the No Bullshit Podcast. It's Conklin. And yeah, man, we're back at it again with another video, man. We've been, doing some NBA videos just to catch up with the season and everything, but you know, you see our jerseys, we come back at it again with
Dude.
back to the football season, right? The Super Bowl might have just ended, but a couple weeks later, it's the draft, right?
Mhm.
And so it's all season. And you could probably say this is probably the most interesting part of the season, all season, right? So with that said, I mean, come on, Kai, let's hear your takeaways for the Chargers.
Um, we've talked a lot about, the 49ers, with them, going to the playoffs and eventually going to the Super Bowl. Talk about my Chargers, it's like the exact opposite. You know what I mean? Like, we have a top 5 pick, right? So I'd be lying if I said at the beginning of the season that I envisioned, us having a top 5 pick. But, mix of different things, whether it be, bad decisions, whether it be injuries at the wrong times, right? Pretty much once 10 went down, that was our season. But I do feel as though that this gives us an opportunity to kind of reload, refresh, and because it's funny enough for a team that has a top 5 pick, we already had talent all over this roster. So I'm definitely excited to see whoever we add, right? Um, but just some of the things moving on to next season, right? What was the big news for the Chargers getting Jim Harbaugh. As as a lot of people, anybody that would listen, my God, the entire all season was Jim Harbaugh. I wanted nobody else but Jim Harbaugh, and
Yeah,
we
man,
got him.
talk about it.
We
Talk about
fucking
it.
got him. You know what I mean? Like, and the biggest thing with Jim Harbaugh, what he brings to this team is he brings experience. He brings that adult presence. You know what I mean? A leader of men at all levels, right? He's found success at all levels. And I feel like that's what this team needs, right? I think this team needs that leader from up top, and then a guy that the team can rally behind and follow. Some of the things that I'm looking forward to is seeing this team get more physical, right? Like, pretty much the entire offseason, that's one of the the pop words that has been used, is just being more physical, more physical, more physical, right? And that's in all facets, and I feel like we're starting from a good position, right? I believe the Chargers were top 5 in total tackles last season just on defense. So I feel like the defense, there's something there, but the offense, I feel like, we definitely have to run the ball more. I feel like that starts, with some of the, the hirings that we've done, with Jim taking over, right, with our new OC, um, very run heavy. Jim himself is known for being very run heavy, so I'm very interested to see what they do in that aspect. Um, with that being said, I feel like it's important that we become more balanced next season, right? Like, it's kind of funny. I wrote down like more Herb, because last season it was weird. Like, all the respect in the world to Kellen Moore, but a lot of it was honestly due to injury. But we didn't really see a lot of plays that really capitalized on what Justin Herbert does well, what he's comfortable with. So definitely we need more plays of that. But also at the same time, we need less Herb. Like, we need less games where he's just being Superman, right? Where we put the ball in his hands and make him throw 60 fucking times in order for us to win. Like, that's not a winning method. Like, is it nice to have a quarterback that can do that? 100%. But you can't be asking for him to do that every single game in and game out. Like, that'll never work. So, being able to get a run game and help him out was definitely something I'm looking forward to. Also, like I said, just being more creative, right? Like, again, with these plays, a lot of the times it was very predictable. It was, a screen and hitches. It's like, as a defense, I'm licking my chops. Like, this is nothing. Like, this is Pop Warner high school football offense right now. So I'm definitely interested to see like how Jim puts his touches on this offense. And also just having overall continuity. Like, obviously, it's not just for this season when it comes to continuity, but going forward, right? I'm not sure how long Jim's under contract, but it's got to be at least 5 years. Like, in going into his 5th season in the NFL, like Justin Herbert has had three different head coaches and 4 different offensive coordinators. I don't care who you are, like you cannot overcome that. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why these guys are getting fired. Like you can't tell me they're good. You know what I mean? Like there is a reason. So, and when you look at every other quarterback that's called in the top 10, top 5, whatever, they can't say that. You know what I mean? That they've had that much turnaround to try to overcome. So I'm definitely looking forward to
Mm-hmm.
matching up the quarterback with the coach. Um, and then just some things that I feel as though if I'm the GM, these are things that I'm doing. Number one, I love him to death, right? He ever since he's come to this team, he's been amazing. But I feel like you just have to take advantage of his value right now. In my opinion, we have to trade Khalil Mack, right? Like we
Ooh.
have to get some
Okay.
money. We have to get younger. And honestly, I believe in Thule, right? Our rookie from last year. Like he showed a lot of signs last year, but not even just as a pass rusher, also on the run game. Like it was definitely nice, adding him in there in the defensive line, not missing a beat. We were also one of the top teams in sacks last year. So, you know, again, getting younger. With that being said, also restructuring Joey Bosa, right? I don't feel as though you trade him, right? Because
Interesting.
obviously we all know it's the big four, right? It's Keenan Allen, it's Mike Dub, Bosa, and Mack. In my opinion, you keep Keenan Allen at all costs. He will retire a Charger, right? So that's out the door. You can restructure him, add an extra year to his contract, and save some money. Trade Mack, trade Mike Dub, restructure Bosa. I feel like that puts us in a good spot. With our assets, try to get a pass catcher, right? Whether it's a tight end, whether it's a wide receiver, try to get a pass catcher. Because in my opinion, our 2 wide receivers going to next year should be Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. That should be our number 1, number 2, right? And listen, I have written down here. Let's hope that QJ shows some sign of life, right?
The
Maybe with a
goat.
new coach and all that in a year's experience, that he can make that jump. Because to be quite honest, Mike Williams didn't have a good rookie season, so maybe he can follow his footsteps and be able to have a better sophomore year. And finally, man, I have my full trust in Jim Harbaugh, and let him get his guys, especially on defense, right? Let him run the team how he wants to run. Let him get the guys that are in his system the way he wants them to play, and he'll take us to the moon. I have nothing but complete trust in Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, man. Like you said it all. I'm pretty sure heading to the process of during the whole playoffs, we've heard like rumblings of like who's going to be the next Chargers head coach, right? And it's an attractive position because the main prize, Justin Herbert, right? Like any coach in any position will love to coach a guy like Justin Herbert on their team. Because what's the one thing that you want when you're trying to restart a franchise is that you got to have a starting you have to have a franchise QB. Well, there's no other better place than the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
So it makes them an attractive destination. That's one, right? And another thing is that it's kind of home. He started with the Chargers, I feel like, right? Either the
Yep.
Chargers or the Colts or something like that. But it's like a full circle moment. But yeah, man, like during the whole process, I was rooting for y'all to get Jim Harbaugh because that I know I love Jim Harbaugh, man. I
Mhm.
love him to death. Like I don't know why. Like he had a whole him and the ownership had a whole like fuss about everything, and look how that happened, right?
Mhm.
And so Jim Harbaugh, all I know is that for sure you guys are gonna have a balanced offense. You guys are definitely going to be physical. I mean, you looking from the last time he was NFL, with the Niners, right?
Mhm.
They had, or you had arguably the best line. It's not even, honestly, it's not even arguable. It's the best linebacker duo of the decade, Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. And speaking of Navarro Bowman, you guys hired him,
Mhm.
right? And so that's the one thing that's gonna be really key because it's gonna be really interesting who you guys might even draft at the linebacker position, right? Or even if you guys don't draft, maybe he's able to develop some of your younger guys,
Yep.
right? And so it's gonna be interesting at that standpoint. But all of this just the meaning of getting Jim Harbaugh is for the betterment of Herb, right? At the
100%.
end of the day, right? Because like you said, it is cool and all to have a quarterback that can throw like 40 plus times and still win the
Hmm.
game, right? And
Hmm.
that's cool, but that's not a winning formula at the end of the
No.
day, right? You see every Super Bowl team, you see every championship level team, they have a running game,
Hmm.
right? They have a running game and a defense. That are
Yep.
the two main things, right? And that's two main things that I think the Chargers are not that far away from,
Hmm.
right? Like, I
100%.
mean, obviously, like on defense, you guys have the talent. Like,
Hmm.
come on, let's not play around here. Like, you guys
Yeah.
definitely have the talent. It's just that I feel like from like the past few years, you guys have been hindered by like the personnel and everything, right? And so it's been kind of tough to, and people are just like it's kind of head scratching, right? For a lot of
Yeah.
Chargers fans, it's like, what is going on? We have all this talent, but we're getting burnt on defense every single time,
Hmm.
right? I mean, sorry to bring it up, but like a couple years ago in the playoffs, you blew a lead to the Jaguars,
Yep.
right? And that was that was a that was a breaking point right there for your former head coach.
Oh, 100%. And I was definitely critical of him after that game, but I tried to put everything in perspective. But now looking back on it, that was a microcosm of the entire Brandon Staley era, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when it comes to trusting Jim Harbaugh, a Jim Harbaugh coach team, that's not happening, right? So for me, the issue has never been talent. The issue has always been injury and poor coaching, right? So injury, you can't really control it. So hopefully, we can get some luck going into next season. But coaching, man, like you just said, like it's names all across this coaching staff. It's respect all across this coaching
Mm-hmm.
staff. Is names that around the league people are
All-star
like,
lineup.
dang, the Chargers got a good one, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that this would happen with getting Jim Harbaugh. He has that level of respect around the league that coaches would be like, I want to team up with him, right? I want to learn from him. I want to, show what I can do on the team that he's coaching, right? So I want to be a team that's like the 49ers where every year we're losing, coordinators and everything. That's a good thing, right? That means that
Yeah.
okay, we're doing something well, right? That's the position I want my team to be in. And I feel like it all starts at getting your head coach.
Yep. And I totally agree with that. And just like real quick, just like to have a little fun question to throw in here. Like, we all know Jim Harbaugh. He just won a national championship with the
Hmm.
the Michigan Wolverines. Shout out to them, right?
Hmm.
But my thing is that like going to the draft, you guys have some high picks, right? You guys have a few picks here and there, right? And my thing is, how many Michigan players do you think he gonna draft? Like, do you think it's gonna be uh, just give me like a
Over under, over
yeah
under.
over under two.
I'm gonna say fuck. I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't know. It's a lot of Michigan players that
Yeah.
declare for the draft, so I'm gonna say over. I feel like we get
Ooh.
over
Okay.
two, maybe like three or four Michigan guys that follow
Interesting.
him. Um, you know, we'll definitely do a video with our mock drafts, but
Hmm.
there's definitely a number of Michigan guys that I would be more than happy with, them suiting up in powder blue. But
Oh, for
I'm,
sure.
obviously this is my time to ramble about the Chargers. But I'm curious, right? Like as a team that is just coming straight off of another Super Bowl appearance, like
What are you
where do
talking
we go
about?
from here? The 49ers. Where do we go from here? You know what I mean? Like
Wait, what Super Bowl?
understood. So like where do we go from here, right? Like what are the next steps that if you were John Lynch, like what is the keys to the off season?
Yeah, man. Like headed into this offseason, we already made a few moves, right? I mean, shoot, we had during the whole playoff run, we had our coaches getting interviewed for either coordinator jobs or even like assistant GM jobs or becoming a GM, right? For example, right, Adam Peters, our assistant GM, right? He became the GM of the Washington Commanders, right? And then you got I'm pretty sure it was our pass game coordinator on offense. It was a Kubiak. I forgot his first name, but it's a Kubiak that he went to the Saints, right? And then a few other guys on defense got poached. Our assistant D line coach went to the I don't know, somewhere, but he got poached away, right? But the main thing that we're all still trying to figure out, and it hasn't been resolved yet,
Yeah.
is the defensive coordinator position. As we all
Mhm.
know, we fired Steve Wilkes, and let me just say it again: the Super Bowl was not a reflect of saying that, oh, we are firing him because of the Super Bowl. He is not the
Uh-huh.
scapegoat. We're not making him a scapegoat. People who actually watched the Niners game, you know, in the beginning of the game and the end of the game, throughout the whole season, they all knew he had it coming,
Mhm.
right? Especially during that losing streak. You already know it's not going to go well when you have your head coach calling you out and say, "Yo, I'm basically your ass got to come from the booth to the field." Right? That's already one thing,
Yeah.
right? And another thing, you got him. Literally, the camera's in the Super Bowl, panning over to Kyle Shanahan, yelling in the headset, calling a timeout, saying, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm
Yeah.
changing the play call."
Yeah.
Right? And so all these things is like, being a head coach and the offensive coordinator, right? Like you're telling me I got to worry about the defensive side as well? That's a lot to
Yep.
handle. That is a
Yep.
lot to handle, right? And obviously, I'm not saying it was all his fault that Super
Mhm.
Bowl, right? There obviously it's a team game, right?
Well, 100%.
Everybody has their part in the loss, right? But we're saying overall here that Steve Wilkes got fired because of what he did over the season. Now, if you look in retrospect, he did have a top 10 defense, right? And so, but I'd say it's mainly because of the players. I mean, look at our team throughout the whole season, right?
Mhm.
Talking about, you could argue say we have an all pro at every position, right? We got linebackers, D tackle, edge, defensive end, cornerback, safety, right? This is
Yep.
arguably all pro at every position, man. And we have a lot of depth there too. But the main thing is that, narrowing down this defensive coordinator position before we get into the draft, about addressing any offseason issues, right? And we interviewed a few guys. I have a list of the names here, right? And I'm ranked in order of like how they were interviewed and honestly my personal preference,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm just saying real quick that the names that we got. So we got a guy named so we have a couple in-house guys. Nick Sorensen, he's our defensive pass game specialist. And then we also have Daniel Bullocks, our DB's coach. And then there was a couple guys that we interviewed outside of the organization, which was Dave Merritt. Dave Merritt is actually the Kansas City Chiefs DB coach, which is pretty interesting
Okay.
there, right? Obviously, we all know about the Brandon Staley interview. Like I don't. Let's not
Don't
even
fall
talk
for it.
about
Don't fall
exactly.
for it.
And then the other interesting name, which I don't really get, is Gerald Alexander. Gerald Alexander is the Raiders safety coach, which is interesting, right? And then there was reports that we also did, like Kyle did get a chance to talk to Bill Belichick,
Mhm.
and it was reports or rumors rather that he was essentially offered a job, but he said, I mean, he's gonna have an ego. A guy that's won
Mhm.
7 rings or 6 rings rather, he's gonna have an ego,
Yeah.
man, right?
Mhm.
And so supposedly he's trying to get a TV job right now for 1 year. So
Mhm.
we'll see how that goes. Kind of hard for me to see Bill Belichick on TV talking
Yeah.
TV, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, man, out of those names, in my personal preference, I'd like to have somebody in house, man. Like
Okay.
it's happened every single we got Robert Sala. After that, who do we groom to become that next defensive coordinator? It was you know, uh, D'Amico Ryans,
Mhm.
right? And I think the next guy up, I know a lot of people are saying, a lot of the Niners reporters are saying Nick Sorensen is like the lead candidate probably, but I kind of want Daniel Bullocks. Like he's been
Okay.
around here for a while as our DB's coach. Like he's developed, a few of our corners. First
Mhm.
off, Diamador Lenore, that man is a beast, man. Like first, especially since his rookie year, he's been a beast, right? And then
Okay.
ever since the coming to this year and in the Super Bowl, he made big plays. He always makes big plays. He's the type of guy where you can line him up on the inside as a slot corner, or you can line him on the outside, right? And he'll lock up, and he can tackle, right? And
Mhm.
then you look at the safeties position. You got Hufanga, got Jair
Mhm.
Brown, right? And then obviously got the veteran Gibson, right? And so I think that, and the main reason why I'm like interested with how we're like doing these candidates interviews, right, is that what I realized is that they're all relatively like defensive back coaches essentially, right? Which is interesting because when you think about the Niners, you think about as being a pass rush first defense,
Mhm.
right? I'm wondering maybe what if we were relying more on like the secondary instead of the pass rush, which is interesting, right? Which it could be a new direction we might be heading towards, right?
Mhm.
And I think I watched the one video of an one of the Niners reporters saying that you know sometimes the Niners are doing these interviews not to just hire them, but just get insight, maybe to use, get some ideas of what they could use later in like future for the future. Give some insight like how we could like evolve the defense, right? Because this is a copycat league, right? Everybody's
Oh
going to
yeah.
copy it. You're going to figure out what you're going to do, but it's up to you to evolve,
Mhm.
right? And so that's how that's what I'm going to say for the defensive coordinator, candidates and stuff like that. But going on to like our off-season needs, a lot of I've always said we needed the right side to get fixed, right? But I just think that when you literally look at it, you got to revamp the D line. What is the
Okay.
and people are saying why you have to revamp the defensive line? We paid Hargrave, we paid Bosa, we got Armstead. Here's the thing, guys. We have to realize we only have 5 guys under contract. Like we only have Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, and then Drake Jackson, who's coming off an injury, right? And then we have Robert Beal Jr., who's a rookie who barely played, and that's it. We have 6 free agents on the defensive line, and that is really really interesting. Hold on, you just my AirPod. But yeah, it's really really interesting because in the draft, there's a few good guys that you can get in the draft, right? But you can also do it in free agency. A lot of it. And speaking of free agency, they came out clutch. They came out clutch for a lot of teams, right? I mean, people were expecting it to be like a 20 million increase, but it was a 30 million increase, right? And so, we're now under the cap. And what was pretty surprising to see was that, you can restructure contracts, right? And so supposedly we have money to play with. We have money to play with because if we do restructure contracts, our max money that we could have is 98 million, which is crazy. Which is crazy. It's an insane number, right? So we have flexibility to do what we need to do. But the main priority is D line, and then honestly, just re-sign Brandon Ayuk. Like, like Ayuk, he has to stay. Like he just has to. He has created so much chemistry with Brock Purdy, like so much chemistry. You don't want that to lose when from especially from a young QB, right? Right. I get the whole and people want to say about like trading and cutting guys in here and there, and I get it, right? Guys are getting old here and there, right? And people are saying, oh, why is Kyle Juszczyk still here, right? But at the end of the day, you know, we can still work around it. We can still work around it, right? And people want to talk about, oh, trade Debo and then sign Ayuk. That's just not how it works. That's not how it works, right? Because Debo right now, right? If we were to trade him, we would take like a 20 mil cap hit. Like that's not gonna like especially and cutting him, it will be even worse this year. I think it's not about this offseason that's important. I think it's about next offseason, right? And people say why? Well, guess what? Brock Purdy is about to get that extension next year. and it's going to be real interesting how much he's going to get paid, because that means we're going to have to make some tough decisions. So whatever we do this free agency, it's going to carry on to next free agency. So we have to think about what's going to happen right now, and then because whatever we do right now is going to affect the future, right? And so we have to take advantage of like anything that happens, especially the cap space going up every year, especially this year, right? But yeah, but like besides that, I mean, if you want to talk about positions we want to focus on besides the IU thing, it's a D line, O line, right side specifically, receiver, and then tight end slash linebacker. Because I think that the tight end slash linebacker position, Greenlaw's out. Greenlaw's going to be out for a while. I feel like. There's some reports saying that he might be back for like week 1, which is crazy. I don't think he is going to be back for week 1. But even if he is, he's probably not going to be 100%, right? And so it's no reason to rush him. So him being out, and then Oren Burks, I don't even want to talk about him. He gave up so many yards. I don't talk about him, but we can't depend on a second year player in D Winters, not yet, right? He hasn't proven nothing yet, right? So we need to get a solid guy right next to Fred Warner, right? And I think a perfect guy that we could bring it in, Aziz Al Shair. Come home, come back home to the team that drafted you. You know our system, and shoot, we can make fireworks happen, man. And if you're not gonna get it back this year, you're gonna get it next year if you play with us, because he's gonna be starting. If I predict that Greenlaw's not gonna come back until later in the year, Aziz is gonna showcase his talents. He's gonna showcase his talent with this defense, man. So so that's a guy to look out for us. Talking about Jawan Jennings, he's a restricted free agent, but after that Super Bowl performance, he might get paid. He might just get paid, right?
He should, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think a perfect guy to come, to get, if he's like let go or anything, is Kendrick Bourne. Similar situation. He was basically a Jawan Jennings type of guy, right? Just a little bit smaller, of course, right? But same height, same type of route running, stuff like that. Solid guy, move the chains type of guy, right? And so getting him back would be pretty good, right? And then I think like if you want to sign some guys in on the O line, it could be like Robert Hunt. We're looking at from the Dolphins, right? And so yeah, I mean D line. I think you just got to do that in the draft. You want to get younger, right? And then guess what? We all know the Super Bowl, we failed. The season was a failure, right? But we cannot let that hang over our heads, and the Super guys, come on now. The Super Bowl window is not closed. It's not yet, not yet, right? I think we still got at least like a couple more years. We'll see how this season goes. But all I gotta say is that I better see a fucking O lineman drafted in the higher rounds that we have our draft picks.
Round
Hey
one?
man, hey, I mean a guy that I like, Troy from Washington, versatile O lineman, can play inside, outside. I wouldn't mind, but at 31, we're gonna see how the draft board goes. But at that point, you could go best player available. You could, right?
Honestly, and we're gonna do a whole separate draft video. But if I'm in your guys' position, I will honestly trade back. Try to see if maybe I could, get 2 second-round picks. You know what I mean? Like, try to get as much talent as possible. Because and we're kind of in. Even though our team's level of success is different, both the teams' timelines are kind of in the same space. Like where you have to get younger, right? Like even though yes, the cap is getting, a bump, so are these players' contracts, right? Like the numbers are not staying the same every single year. The top guys getting bumped up 5 million, 10 million. Like where just 5 years ago, a big number for a quarterback was 33 million a year. Now you got guys that are in the 50s. You know what I mean? So, and I guarantee you, like the whole next cycle, a guy's gonna hit 60 million. So both our teams are definitely in that kind of where, and to be quite honest, I feel like the best teams are built through the draft, right?
Yeah.
You use
Hmm.
free agency to kind of get those finishing touches. You do those trades to get those, the push you over the top. But your core team, it has to be players that you grew, that are homegrown. Your team did their job, scouted them well, and built them up. I feel like that's how the best teams are made. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Yeah, again, two teams coming from two different, seasons, seeing
Hmm.
how they attack the off season and moving into this next season.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, just piggyback off of it. Like, the best teams are built to the draft. You look at the Lions, right?
Mhm.
They drafted phenomenally, right? And they still got some cap space to work with. So it's gonna be interesting what they do,
Mhm.
right? The draft is a way for you to develop players that
Mhm.
you like, right? This is in the draft. Honestly, I feel like every year the draft has been getting better and better, right? Like I feel like, in my opinion, you don't really see like actual busts like that, really. Like besides quarterbacks, of course,
Mhm.
right? I feel like in general, I've seen the drafts over the past few years. It's been a lot of guys, a lot of positions that has so much depth. Look at this draft, right? You in the first
Mhm.
round, you could possibly have 7 O linemen. That's insane. That's a lot of O linemen, right? It goes to show, and this receiving class, it's pretty interesting too.
Mhm.
Like, we'll see how many receivers go in the first round, but obviously not probably gonna be a lot like, other years, the best years, right? But it's definitely a good receiving class. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah, and,
right?
that, and to be quite honest, I wouldn't even get really too caught up in the first round numbers, because
Mm-hmm.
year in and year out, what do we see? Guys taken in the later rounds that really make impacts in their first year. So
Puka.
I'm curious to see who are the guys that or who are the teams that really get those late round steals, man? Because you know those really are the teams that really see that amount of impact, because they didn't really have to give up a lot of draft capital, and they got a real stud for years to come. So again, like I said, I'm very interested to see how the Chargers and 49ers, how they move forward going into this off season. The kind of the moves that they make. Obviously, we'll definitely keep you guys posted if anything big happens.
Yep.
This is my favorite time of the year. Like, I love
Mm-hmm.
the regular season, I love the playoffs, but man, the off season, man, like, this is like, I grew up as a kid playing Madden, right? Where I was making trades, I was signing players, like the free agency, the draft. I love that, man. So we'll definitely be having some more content out. Regards to the draft, we'll definitely give you guys our opinions, our winners and our losers off after this combine. You know,
Yeah.
just off of what we seen, man. My guy Nate Wiggins, man. I've been saying this was one of my
Yeah.
guys, and listen, so far he has the top 40 time. Like, I
Yeah.
called it. I mean, I wish I would have put money on it, but I called it, man. Like, Nate Wiggins, man. I'm very looking forward to where he falls in the draft. He did kind of come out with an injury, so we're very, yeah. From what I've heard, he's just still um participated as pro day, so that's still good.
Okay.
He's not gonna he shouldn't miss any time. But yeah, we'll definitely keep you guys posted on the winners and the losers after this combine. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, man. Like, and just to piggyback just a little bit off of that. I mean, be on the lookout for other videos. Like we did a Niners and Chargers preview to the off season, but be on the lookout. There's a couple other fan bases we might want to get into. So
Mhm.
might be a little interesting if you guys see a couple new faces on the channel,
Mhm.
right, on the pod. So that said, it's been no bullshit, and we'll catch you guys on the next time.